Myanmar's senior general Min Aung Hlaing arriving in Jakarta ahead of Saturday's summit. His invitation has caused uproar in Myanmar, granting legitimacy to the coup, say protesters. That anger was reflected by demonstrators outside the ASEAN Secretariat compound. The ferocity of the military crackdown and the rising death toll has drawn condemnation around the world. But as the Southeast Asian leaders gathered, it was clearly going to be a testing day. Splits have emerged in the group. Malaysia, Indonesia and Singapore have been openly critical. Others, most significantly Thailand, have been relatively quiet since the coup. But as they went into closed session, it was clearly not going to be an easy ride for Myanmar's senior general.
In that meeting, I said several things. One, the development of the situation in Myanmar is unacceptable and should not continue. Violence must be stopped. Democracy, stability and peace in Myanmar must be returned immediately.
What has emerged from the summit is a 5-point plan, calling for an end to the violence and the release of all political prisoners.
He must restrain himself and his forces so that tension can be relieved. A request for a second commitment, an inclusive dialogue process must begin immediately. Political prisoners must be released and an ASEAN special envoy needs to be formed, namely the Secretary General of ASEAN and the Chair of ASEAN, to encourage dialogue with all parties in Myanmar.
But will the military comply? ASEAN has tried to rein in Myanmar's military before, in the 90s and early 2000s, to little avail. On the streets of Darwin, protesters were back out once again, as they were in many of Myanmar's cities, first in convoys of motorbikes and then on foot. They will also be hard to placate, having shed so much blood. And will they accept returning to a system where their democracy is overseen by the military? Tony Cheng, Al Jazeera.